Welcome to Financial Garden Live, where we plant financial seeds every week so you can grow in our 6 areas of focus. Emotions and money, entrepreneurship, budgeting, banking, debt fundamentals, and investing. I'm your host, Tasha Danielle. Let's dig in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Financial Garden Live. I'm Tasha Danielle. I'm your host. And today, unfortunately, Atiya will not be with us, with me, with you all on Financial Garden Live. She's actually going to be here next Thursday. So the good thing is you have a week to send some questions in to me so I can ask them to Atiya. We're still going to cover business taxes, but leave your comments today so we can get to address them next week. I'm going to be talking about business taxes today too, but just my perspective on 5 things that I'm constantly answering to people specifically for business taxes. And I'm going to share how I got audited by the IRS. So again, Atiya will be with us next week. And I'm so excited to have her on because she is the owner and founder of The Savvy Accountant. And she does taxes like every day. Like that's her main focus in her business, is being a tax planner, tax preparer, all of that stuff is her specialty. So I really wanted to have someone on that specializes in that, and not just business taxes, but specifically real estate taxes. And she also does other areas for small businesses as it relates to their taxes. So if you have any comments or questions that you want her to answer next week, make sure you are leaving them in the comment section, and also share this video. If you know an entrepreneur, tag them in this video, because I'm going to be going over common things that entrepreneurs miss when it comes to their business and taxes. So again, share and tag an entrepreneur that you know needs to see this. Also, if you have any questions, make sure you are dropping them in the comment section. All right, so let me share my audit experience from the IRS. So I want to kind of go over what triggers an IRS audit. There's a number of things. I'm just going to go off a couple off the top of my head. If you have your own business and self-employed, and if you're self-employed and that is your primary source of income, that can be a trigger for IRS audit. Because people who are self-employed, the IRS tends to think that they overstate their expenses. So extremely high expenses when it comes to travel, entertainment, meals and things like that, home expense deductions, the home office deduction. The IRS really focuses in on self-employed individuals because of those 3 things. So when you are self-employed, you are at a higher risk for being audited by the IRS. So that's just one thing in general. The other thing that triggers, well, not automatically triggers, but could give you cause to have an audit by the IRS is your level of giving, your charitable giving. So the IRS doesn't think that people give 10% in church. I'm just going to say that. So I am a Christian. I am faith-based, and tithing is something that is talked about in the Christian church as far as giving 10% of your earnings to the church, right? And the IRS views that as being a little high. So if you actually do tithe 10%, you are at a greater risk for being audited by the IRS. Now, and am I no way saying don't tithe? I'm not saying that's up to you, but I'm just saying when you do give a lot to a church or a charitable organization, if it's a certain amount over your income, not over your income, a certain percentage of your income, they can flag. And it's usually over 5%. The IRS kind of is looking like, okay, is this actually going to said charitable organization? So that is something that could be a flag for you to get audited. Also, besides being self-employed, besides charitable giving, Real estate investing is also something that triggers IRS audits quite frequently. So those are just a few things that can trigger IRS audit. So I am currently going through an IRS audit right now, and I want to share my experience, and then I'm going to share the 5 things that you should know as a business owner when it comes to your taxes. So again, Atiya is going to be back next week for those that are joining right now. All right, so my experience with undergoing an IRS tax audit. I got a letter Q2 of this year saying that I was being audited for previous year's income tax filing. And I kind of was expecting this because of the things I just mentioned that can trigger you for IRS audit. I had some of those in there. So I had bought a house in my home. It was a rental, and I had a lot high expenses for getting it ready for a rental and for a tenant to move in. And then the fact that it was my own home, I knew that was going to trigger an audit, and I was right. And also my percentage of giving. Also, I knew eventually within the next few years I was going to get flagged for IRS audit. So because of that, I've always been very detailed how I do my bookkeeping. I mean, I am a CPA and accountant, so that is something that I do on a day-to-day as far as being organized with my records. So that's nothing new to me. But my IRS audit experience has been a lot. They want everything. So I want to share that with you all. So I have 2 businesses. So I have Financial Garden, I have real estate. So those 2 businesses, and then I am a W-2 earner. I do give. I do have investments and different things going on. So I have a lot going on with my taxes. And I was prepared to be audited. So I got flagged for a number of reasons. But I had all my stuff ready. And I do have representation while I'm going through the IRS audit. So I was kind of planning ahead that I know that I have this stuff going on with me. So let me be prepared. So some of the things that they ask for, they want statements for everything. So my personal accounts, my business accounts, they wanted all my personal bank account statements, credit card statements, everything for that tax year that they were auditing and the previous year. So that was a lot right there. They want these things like when they ask for it, right? So not just that, even my investment accounts, all that stuff, that's a lot. I have a lot of different accounts, so that was a lot of stuff for me to get organized. And then obviously proof of the revenue that I was receiving in both my businesses and proof of expenses. So though the proof of income and expenses for a business usually is where people get dinged. So I'm gonna just move right into the 5 things from there. But that was the biggest thing about my IRS audit, was just having all those things in play and pulling all that information. So they send you a list of things that you have to send in. We're organizing that. And because I had so much going on, it was just a lot to get all the information. Plus during COVID, they want statements that I don't even have on my computer. So how am I going to get this? So I had to get email all these different companies like through their like messaging system on an online account, but the IRS wanted these statements. So basically right now I'm waiting to figure out from them on if I didn't do something correctly or not. I'm just basically waiting for that final outcome. And I've been waiting for months. So COVID has slowed a lot of things up. So I didn't even file. I actually filed an extension this year for my taxes. So one of the reasons why I wasn't concerned or freaking out when I got the IRS audit, no one wants to be audited by the IRS. So I was a little bit nervous about that. I am an auditor. Well, I was an auditor at Big Four accounting firm, done auditing from a corporate standpoint. So I know what goes on in the audit, but it's different when it's you and it's personal. So yeah, even though I knew what to expect from the IRS audit, it was just still frustrating to be going through it and still currently waiting for the outcome and be prepared to argue anything that they're saying is wrong about what I put on my income tax return. All right, so number 1, again, Atiya will be with us next Thursday. So if you have questions about small business taxes, please drop them. Tag an entrepreneur that you know needs to hear this. So, all right. So number 1 is don't commingle personal business funds. That's the first thing that I say when people are asking me about taxes, when they're coming to me and saying, "You're a CPA, can you do my taxes for for personal reasons and for my business?" Usually, I think I said this on a previous Financial Garden Live, it's usually because they're in a panic and they just see CPA and they want me to fix it. And just asking a few questions, I just kind of have an idea of the state of where they are. Don't commingle your funds. This is usually the first thing that I ask, as far as like, do you have a business account set up? Are you keeping track of your records? If I met with a deer in headlights look, I'm like, okay, there's trouble ahead. So if you have a business, if you are side hustling and you're side hustling and you're expecting to recognize any expenses from your side hustle, you really need to have a separate account for that. Now, if you are sole proprietor and you don't have a DBA, you can open up a separate account, a separate checking account, separate checking and savings account for that business. But you really want to have proof that you're keeping things separate in the event that you're audited. So even for me, I've always had the business account, so everything lined up and there was no confusion. But if you don't have separate accounts and you're claiming that, okay, I have an LLC and this is a business, the IRS can deem that it's not a business because you're not operating in a business like manner. There's a whole list of things that go along with that, but the number one, as far as determining if you're operating as a business, is if you have separate business and personal checking accounts. Also, I'm gonna throw this in again. I say this a lot, is having an operating agreement too. If you don't have an operating agreement, you don't have separate accounts, the IRS can deem your LLC or partnership not to be an actual business. So that is just the tip number one. Be operating in a business like manner, and the number one way to do that is to have a separate business and checking account. I always recommend that you open up your business account at a credit union or a local bank because they tend to be friendly when it comes to business fees, especially if you're just getting started out. Second thing is hire the right bookkeeper / CPA. So like I said, I'm a CPA, but I do not do taxes, right? I don't do any tax planning. That's just not my lane of expertise. That's why Atiya is going to be on next Thursday. But think about when you go to a doctor, if you have something going on with your sinuses, you're probably going to go to an ears, nose, and throat doctor. You're probably not going to go to a podiatrist, right? So think about that when it comes to finding a CPA. When you're looking to hire a bookkeeper or a CPA, ask what their specialty is. Atiya specializes in real estate, but she also does other small business fields. But if you are in real estate, whether it's flipping or if you are buying and holding, you want a CPA that is aware of how that industry works. Every industry has a separate set of guidance when it comes to taxes and for accounting purposes. So it's really important to know what that person specializes in. So like I said, I was in public accounting for a few years before going to industry. So basically, when in public accounting, I had exposure to a lot of industries. My specialty in public accounting actually was healthcare and nonprofit industries. So that is my lane. That is something I know inside and out as far as accounting and even a little bit of taxes as it relates to that. Not saying I don't have any exposure to anything else, but that is literally what I did 90 hours a week when I worked in a public accounting firm. I see some questions coming in, so I'm going to go to those. But I just want to finish your thought as far as hiring them. So I'm going to go over some questions you should ask to figure out if it's the right fit for you besides understanding what industry they serve. If you are doing heavy e-commerce, as far as selling products online boutique, you really want to have an accountant, CPA that specializes in that because you have a lot of transactions coming through, right? And usually it's like a lot of high traffic, could be like a low dollar items depending on how you price things. Sometimes if you have an online boutique, you don't actually have the product in your house or warehouse yourself. You're doing drop shipping. That impacts a lot when it comes to how you recognize your inventory. That impacts so much, right? So again, if you don't have an accountant that understands drop shipping or how e-commerce works, if you have an online boutique, that is not going to be a right fit for you. Yeah, they know the basics of accounting is accounting, right? But there are certain things that are special to certain fields. Um, hey Tish, and thank you, Yolanda. Yeah, you really want to make sure you have that right person. So again, there's different specialties for accounting. So I would say too, same thing for real estate. And I keep saying the same two industries. I had other things on top of my mind, but kind of throwing I'm getting sidetracked right now thinking of them off the top of my head. But here are some questions you want to ask, because I have done a couple consults with entrepreneurs this year, even before COVID. I do a lot of speaking locally, especially in my church, because I really believe in financially educating the congregation that I'm with. So one of the things that I'm asked, well, if you don't do it, who does? So I always have referrals, and I always tell them you need to ask certain questions. So when you are hiring a bookkeeper, here's some things you want to get from a bookkeeper or an accountant that you hire. You want to know what you want to get monthly reconciliations from them, which is basically them giving you a report out on your accounts. You should be understanding how much revenue and how much profit you have every month in your business. That is something that should come from your bookkeeper or accountant every month, right? And then you should be reviewing that and understanding what that means. So that's just something in general. So you want to ask them, like, how do they communicate with their client? Is it any extra fees? So say they prepare, right? They email you the reconciliation. They've done their job. They check the box. You want to ask them, do you get a certain amount of FaceTime with them, consultations or whatever about what they're providing to you? You want to understand that and understand the time of the month they deliver that. That's just very basic. They should be giving you monthly reconciliations for your accounts and everything, right? That's number one. After you figure out what industry they serve. The other thing you want to ask, as far as like how often they communicate your finances or whatever, is tax preparation. So are they going to do all that at the same time? Is that part of their package or something that they offer? They don't just do bookkeeping, but if they're not a CPA, are they an EA? Like, do they have the expertise to do this? And then also you want to ask, or you want to look for in a bookkeeper and an accountant, is someone who does planning with you. So there's tax planning, which I'm going to cover in a minute. And then there is actual like planning for your business, projecting revenues. So you don't want just someone that's just going to feed your report. You can do that yourself with a cloud accounting software, which is like FreshBooks or QuickBooks. But if you know you're going to have high revenue and different stuff coming in, you want someone who can give you guidance, not just give you numbers, but understand what to do with those numbers, right? So a cloud accounting software is something like QuickBooks or FreshBooks. So basically, that business checking account that you open is going to be linked to your QuickBooks or your FreshBooks account. I'm going to use QuickBooks because I use QuickBooks, and they are not sponsoring this, but one day they will. So I'm going to walk through QuickBooks for a moment. So when you have QuickBooks, you link your business checking account to it. Every time you swipe your debit card, it's going to track it. It's going to come through in your account, and it's going to say whether it's an expense or a income or expense. Every time you write a check, it's going to come through. Anything that happens in that business checking account, QuickBooks is going to pick it up. So there leaves little room for you missing things when it comes to your accounting for the year. But if you don't understand what those numbers mean, you still are going to want to hire someone to explain what this stuff means to you. And that's where a lot of people don't know what they don't know, right? You see the numbers coming through, but you're like, okay, what does this all mean? The other thing is if you have revenue coming in, which is great, right? You're going to want to pay quarterly taxes, because if you do not, you could get hit with penalties and fees when you go to file your tax returns, because you're not keeping up to date with your quarterly tax payments. So that's another thing in QuickBooks. QuickBooks lets you know, like, okay, you had $300,000 in sales this month or profit this month. This is how much you need to pay quarterly to the IRS. QuickBooks does those calculations for you. But in order for them to do that, you have to be able to categorize what is an expense and what type of expense it is. The other thing that I like about QuickBooks is that it tracks your mileage if you wanted to. So that's something else that you need to be, you don't need to, but it's helpful if you have mileage or your vehicle expenses for your business. QuickBooks will track your mileage for you if you turn on that feature when you're driving. So there's a lot of things that I like about QuickBooks, but again, if you don't stay on top of that every day, really, when you have transactions coming through, at least monthly, you should be doing an overall assessment of it if you're going to do it yourself. Because if you wait to the end, that's when you get overwhelmed and you probably miss out on quarterly tax payments you should have been making. So you want to make sure that if you're going to do it yourself, you are aware of those things. And if you're hiring someone to do this, you want to make sure that they're giving you this information and it's not a surprise. Every bookkeeper, every CPA is not good, just like every doctor is not good. So these are some things you want to be thinking of when you have your business. So I talked to someone who had just started a business this year. She has a lot of revenue coming in, and she has contractors that she's paying, but she's not tracking it. She's paying them in cash. She's like writing them a check, but there's no record of like what their responsibility is. There's no invoice coming in for them. She's just paying them. So I'm like, well, if you're just cutting them a check, then that's an employee. You don't have anything set up. They're not invoicing you. You're just paying them. It's kind of like you're basically paying them on the table, but really not, because you are writing it from your checking account. That's a red flag to the IRS that you have expenses and someone's not reporting. I'm sorry, you have an employee and you're not paying employer taxes, right? So I'm like, if this is truly a contract employee, they need to be invoiced, not contract employee, but a contractor, they need to be invoicing you. So these basic things is something that people really need to know about. So I'm still stuck on number 2, but it's giving you general tips that I've been given to people within the last year. So I'm like, you need to explain to that person that they're going to get a 1099. They need to start invoicing you if they are truly a contractor, and things like that. So that's the benefit of having a bookkeeper or a CPA, so they can be aware of these things. So if they see a lot of just checks coming through, it's like, who are you paying? Oh, it's somebody I'm just paying. They just clean up every now and then. But if it's over a certain amount, you have to issue a 1099. Should this be an employee or is this truly a contractor? This is something that a CPA or a bookkeeper can help you out with. And I mentioned before, like the forecasting aspect of it. They can help you say, hey, are you going to have more sales in the holiday season? Because if you have a lot of revenue that's expected to come in November and December, there should be some tax planning involved with that. So I'm going to hit on number 3 is organization. So I told you I am currently getting audited by the IRS, and I was ready. I had a lot of my stuff was electronic. I didn't know how they were going to ask for everything, but my blood was sending in stuff to them. So I did have to reach out and get some more documents, but I was very organized. Like, I still have receipts from several years ago, hard copy and electronic, of my revenue, just to show, hey, this is a contract for one of the schools that I have. This is the copy of the check for the payment. At the check, if I didn't have a statement available, I was able to still show, like, hey, this was revenue that was coming in, consistent revenue, and it was actual revenue in the business. Just because you see a deposit coming into a checking account doesn't mean it's actual income. So the same thing with expenses. There are sometimes, like when I was going to buy supplies, I have to just go pick it up on my way to a school, have my business checking, and QuickBooks know that as expense, and I'm able to take a picture of that receipt right then and there. But before I had QuickBooks, I was doing things in Excel just because that was what I was comfortable with. But I took pictures of all those receipts just to have on record, and I organized those receipts by month and by year. So I have all those saved on a cloud software like Google Drive, right? You can use Outlook, whatever. You're probably going to have to get a paid portion of that, because if you have a lot of receipts and a lot of things you want to track, you want to make sure it's organized, right? And you don't want to have it amongst several different Gmail accounts because you only had the 15 gigabytes available. I'm speaking from experience because I was like, I don't want to pay for an account. And I'm like, okay, I got a lot of stuff I want to back up on the cloud. Also, I bought an external hard drive this year, something I should have had because I have like 3 different laptops with stuff on it. But they're organized. But what if the computer crashes? I don't have that information anymore. Some of it is hard copy, but sometimes it's just electronic. So that's one way of being organized. All your statements, even if you hire a bookkeeper or CPA, you should still have a copy of your statements. You should still have a copy of your contracts that you have. You should still have, say, if you are doing e-commerce and you are using, I can't think of the platform right now. I'm drawing a blank, but it's the one that most people use when they do e-commerce. They have their own software, accounting software within there. So make sure you're saving those statements every month that's showing the revenue that's coming in there. So, but organize it by month, right? Or month and year. Because if you got audited, you want to have record of that stuff. So just being organized. Aside from the receipts and copies of contracts and copies of the 1099s that were issued or whatever to Financial Guardian, another thing about being organized is your expenses. So there are times where I have went to conferences. I wanted to make sure it was clear that I had a business intent for that. So I'm always keeping record. I would email myself like from my business email account to my business email account with whatever conference I was going to, whatever festival, to say this is what I'm doing there. I would have support emails if I was going out of town to look for real estate. I would have the email to the real estate agent that I was working with to show that I went down to this state for this purpose because I do have real estate, right? So everything I did, I wanted to make sure I was organized. So entertainment, like meals, if you're going out to entertain a potential business client or have a business lunch, those are heavily scrutinized by the IRS. So I always have records of those. The same thing for travel. I love to go to conferences, but if it can always be if this is really serving a business purpose. So again, being organized when it comes to that, not just keeping receipts of everything, but wanting to document business intent for certain things that you have. Yeah, yes, Shopify or WooCommerce. I'm like, oh my goodness, it was escaping me. Yeah, Shopify is the one and I have WooCommerce myself, but I know Shopify is a very popular one that they have their own accounting bookkeeping system in there for you, but it doesn't help if you don't look at it often. And if you're struggling to understand what those numbers means, then you definitely want to hire an accountant. Thank you, because I'm like, what is that? It was like driving me crazy on. I couldn't think of the name of the software I was trying to think of. When you go live, I do have a lot of brain fart, so sometimes I watch stuff. I'm like, oh wait, I meant to say the opposite. I have it in my mind what I want to say, but it doesn't come out right. But S Corp, this is something. If you have high revenue in your business, if you have high revenue coming in your business, amazing. You should already definitely be working with a CPA. But if you are expecting, or this is your first year, you're like, I'm blessed and I'm getting all these sales, you want to work with a CPA to figure out if you should do an S Corp election for the following year. So there are different deadlines on when you can do an S Corp. I want to say you have to do it within the first 3 months of the year. But the benefits of the S Corp is electing to be an S Corp. If you are LLC, you can elect to be an S Corp. That does not mean that your business itself is a corporation. So for example, if I want to make Financial Garden, I want to make to get the S Corp election, that doesn't mean Financial Garden is now incorporated. Financial Garden is still an LLC. I'm taking the S Corp election to get some tax benefits. And the reason that people do the S Corp election, or not people, business owners do S Corp election, is to avoid the amount of self-employment tax that they will get. So if you have an LLC, let's say you make $100,000 in profit that year, if you are a sole member, if you're a sole member LLC and you get all that coming to you, you're going to get taxed. It's going to be self-employment tax is going to hit on that, right? All of it. And if you have an S Corp election, it minimizes the amount of self-employment tax that you get hit on, because you're going to pay yourself a salary within that business, and the salary that you pay yourself, a reasonable salary that you pay yourself, it's going to be taxed under the corporation, and it will be included as an expense. So if you do it that way, if you have an S corp, you're going to pay overall less self-employment tax. So that is why it's really good to work with a CPA, so you can know these things, to help you minimize the taxes. Thank you. So I can help you minimize the taxes. So I definitely cannot wait to Atiya comes on to tell some of the savings that she's giving her clients, from doing, just knowing different things that you may not be aware of. And one of those things is S corp. So I put a question mark because a lot of people are like, what's an S corp? Does that mean I'm a corporation? No, that is a tax election you can make for your business. And I don't recommend it if you are, again, not working with a CPA already, and you understand that you need to set a reasonable set salary for yourself. And if you don't know what that is, that basically means if you are, let's say, a hairstylist, and the hairstylist reasonable set salary from the IRS standpoint or whatever is $100,000, you can't say I'm going to pay myself $300,000 because I'm a master hairstylist. It just doesn't work that way. That's not a reasonable salary. So if you did that, that would be tripping off for an IRS audit. It could be a lot of different problems. So that's one of the main things. And you have to have a payroll software to be an S corp. So there's a lot of more reporting requirements that you have to do if you want to take the S corp election. But I just want to put that out there, that there are some really big benefits if you take the S corp election. I'm having a hard time finding a company that really works with small business. I own a co-working creative space. Yes. So Atiya is going to be on. That's the person that I always recommend. And then another person that I recommend is Atiya McCann. So I'm going to actually just type that in there right now. Atiya, I'm not sure where you are based. In Michigan, and virtual. And Atiya, who's going to be on next week, is a CPA as well. Atiya is a master's in accounting, but she's really good. A few colleagues of mine work with her. And then Atiya, trying to think, Brown, the savvy accountant. And I'm going to drop some more in here. But these are the ones. Obviously, Atiya, because she was going to be on, but she'll be on next week. And then I'm going to put the little CPA. She is in Cali, but she also is very knowledgeable in that space. So hopefully that is helpful. And they're all on social media, so you can see their website. Atiya does free consultation, so you can see if she's right for you. And what I really like about Atiya is that she does true tax planning for people to really make sure that they're headed in the right direction with things. So my last tip is tax planning, and I'll just touch on that as far as one of the things that Atiya specializes in. So when you have a bookkeeper or an accountant, right, I talked about some things that you should expect, or you should ask them about what field they're in, what services do they provide. They don't just give you statements and just say, hey, let me know, see you at tax time, but just giving you numbers. They should really be consulting you, right? So tax planning, the benefit of that is so you can pay the least amount of taxes as possible when it comes to filing your taxes and reducing your quarterly tax payments. So if you have some CPA that's doing tax planning with you, they'll know if an S corp is the best route for you. They'll know that, okay, you have a lot of revenue coming in. Here's some things you can do to reduce your self-employment tax if you're not an S corp. Let's talk about opening up a SEP retirement account. Let's talk about opening up a self-directed IRA. They'll talk about these different things to mitigate your tax liability risk. I'm just throwing some things out there that can help you reduce your tax liability, but this is a part of tax planning. And if they know your industry, they can give you more tax planning tips. And I get what bugs me a lot is people will just increase their expenses. Like that's their tax planning way of like, okay, I have this money coming in, so I'm just going to buy a whole bunch of stuff. Let's think about how we can put that back into the business. A person that's doing tax planning, if they not understand your streams of income, and they know about a product line you're working on, okay, let's move that into that area and put the extra revenues there. Let's see if there's a conference you can go to do more learning. Maybe you can be more money can go into marketing. They can do some analysis for you. This is not part of tax planning. This is part of just strategic planning for financial. But the tax planning person, part of it too, can think about how to really reinvest into your business and not just say, let's write everything off as an expense so we can reduce our tax liability. So that is, and that I think Atiya was just saying that she saved someone $200,000 in July alone with doing appropriate tax planning. So those are my 5 things that every small business owner should know, and top mistakes that I see when I don't do this, right? I don't do taxes full time, but this is just basic knowledge stuff because of colleagues. Like I know Atiya, met her a couple years ago, but then aside from Atiya, just a network of CPAs that is here in Michigan that I hear. Because as a CPA, you have to do continuing education every year. You meet so many CPAs in different industries. So I dropped down, I think 3 for you in there. So if I'm thinking of more, I will definitely leave them in the comment section below. But see if they have complimentary consultation so you can really see what services they offer. And if you're thinking I can't afford a bookkeeper or a CPA, don't say that until you actually look at the prices of what they charge. And you may think that it may not be worth it, but you don't know what you don't know, right? So you have to pay for that expertise. I feel the same way when I have to contact an attorney. I'm like, is there a way to get around this? But it's just an added cost of doing business, right? So you can pay someone $150, $200 an hour. That's a lot, right? But then that could save you thousands in taxes for that same year, right? So just think about it from that perspective. It's truly an investment in your business. All right. So if you have any more questions or comments, drop them below. I'll still see the comments after I go off this live, and really Atiya will be addressing those because she has so many great stories on how she's helped her clients save so much money when it comes to taxes. So you do not want to miss that. And I want to close with saying, don't forget about 10K with Amina Financial Gardens initiative to teach 10,000 kids about kidpreneurship. Get a copy of Amina's bracelets at financialgarden.com and plant a financial seed for a child in your life. And I will see you next Thursday with Atiya at 7 p.m. Bye.